Welcome to the deep dive. When you look at major military decisions, they almost always boil down to a fundamental choice in philosophy. And today, we are analyzing one of the biggest ones in modern defense tech, the relentless battle between speed and stealth.
It's a huge one.
Our mission here is to figure out which of these approaches is actually winning in the race to build next-gen weapons and aircraft. And more importantly, why?
Right.
We're unpacking a whole stack of sources to get the full picture. Everything from RAND cost analyses, deep scientific papers on plasma physics, all the way to congressional research on, cutting-edge platforms like the SR-72 concept and the NGAD program.
And we're really trying to answer that core question. How do major powers plan to get into these heavily defended areas?
The A2AD zones.
Exactly, anti-accessory denial. These networks blanket entire regions with sensors, with interceptors. So what's the best way in? Is the future built on remaining totally unseen? That's the stealth approach. Or is it built on being just utterly uncatchable?
Relying on pure speed.
Exactly. And this isn't just, some engineering contest. These choices dictate the trade-offs in budgets, in logistics, and strategic risk for the next, 50 years?
That's the exact dilemma. Okay, let's get into it. Let's start with those two competing philosophies that you see in modern missile design. You've got low observability on one side and hypervelocity on the other.
And U.S. strategy has really favored the stealth approach.
Oh, absolutely. You can see it perfectly with the AGM-158 JASSM cruise missile, and especially its new extreme range variant, the XR.
So when we say stealth or low observability we're talking about a whole design philosophy.
It's not just one thing. It's reducing both the radar and the infrared signatures.
Right. And for the JASSM-XR, it starts with the literal shape of the missile.
It uses those faceted surfaces, that very distinctive trapezoidal cross-section, and really careful edge alignment. It's all designed to just scatter radar energy away from the source.
So the return signal is just too weak to detect. And the sources really highlight the engineering you need to pull that off. You'd have to hide the main radar hotspots. A huge one for any aircraft or missile is the engine.
The Achilles heel.
Yeah, specifically the intake and that highly reflective compressor face deep inside. The JASSM's design is brilliant. It buries that intake deep inside the fuselage, so it's completely shielded from radar.
And you can't just beat radar, you have to beat heat too. That infrared signature is a dead giveaway.
Right, so the exhaust is actively shielded, and it's mixed with ambient air to cool down that plume temperature. Otherwise, that plume is just a giant heat-seeking target.
So that's the design. How does it work in practice? What's the tactic?
The tactic is all about being low and quiet. The missile flies extremely low, sometimes just 10 or 20 meters off the ground, just hugging the terrain.
It's using the curve of the Earth to hide.
It's hiding under the radar horizon, and it has to stay passive. It guides itself using GPS and inertial navigation, and only in the very final moments does it switch on an infrared seeker for that terminal phase.
So its survival really hinges entirely on one thing.
On remaining undetected.
And that's the big vulnerability, isn't it?
It is. If that stealth shield fails for any reason, a new kind of radar, a procedural mistake, the system is suddenly a sitting duck.
We've seen it happen.
Oh, yeah. History is full of examples. The F-117 in Serbia, the RQ-170 drone in Iran. When stealth fails, the platform usually doesn't have the speed or the agility to get away.
So, okay, the stealth philosophy is all about evasion. If competitors like Russia and China are moving away from that, what are they leaning into instead?
They're leaning into speed. Raw, overwhelming speed. We're talking hypervelocity, consistently flying above Mach 5.
And that's where the physics just changes completely.
It's a whole different world. Once you pass Mach 5, the air fluid dynamics shift. The technical term is the Newtonian hypothesis model. But what it really means is the air stops flowing smoothly over the vehicle.
Like water.
Right. Instead, it starts acting like a high-speed shower of particles just slamming into the vehicle.
Yeah.
And that intense friction and shock creates something fascinating for this discussion. The plasma stealth paradox.
That's a great term. So speed is accidentally creating its own kind of stealth.
In a way, yes. The friction from going Mach 8 or 9 superheats the air molecules until they ionize. They form this thin, electrically charged layer around the vehicle.
The plasma sheath.
That's it. And this ionized gas can actually block, absorb, and reflect radio frequency signals. It reduces the classic radar cross-section.
So you get this physics-based stealth for free, but there's a big catch, isn't there?
A huge one. And it's immediate. While that plasma sheath hides you from radar, The same superheated, glowing plasma makes you an intense beacon in the infrared
If
spectrum.
you're flying high and hot.
Exactly. You're not stealthy in the traditional sense at all. You're a giant heat signature in the sky. If we look at, say, the Russian 3M-22 Zircon missile.
The one that flies at Mach 8 or 9.
Right. Its survivability has nothing to do with traditional stealth features. It's based on what we call kinematic survivability.
So what does kinematic survivability actually mean for you, the listener?
It means the movement is the defense. By the time a defender detects that hot, high-flying missile, calculates an intercept course, and launches,
It's too late.
the Zircon has already moved so far, or even just adjusted its course slightly, that the entire defensive calculation is useless. It forces the defender into an impossible decision window. Time is its shield.
So that's the split. You have the U.S. focusing on the subsonic undetectable JASSM with its 1,600-kilometer range, while competitors are betting on these high-speed, highly visible, but uncatchable missiles.
Two totally different answers to the same problem of A2AD.
Okay, it's easy to get lost in the tech, but all of this is tied to the bottom line. Let's look at the financial trade-offs, because the RAND study we looked at had some genuinely counterintuitive findings.
That's right. RAND did an analysis comparing the life cycle cost of a fleet of penetrating stealth bombers versus just relying on expendable standoff cruise missiles.
30 years of procurement, operations, and sustainment.
Exactly. And their scenario was really specific. One new penetrating stealth bomber sortie per day versus achieving the same result by firing 12 expendable long-range missiles every single day.
And the analysis was biased, which is a key point here.
Oh, absolutely biased. It was biased in favor of the missiles. They deliberately left out the cost of the planes that would launch those 12 missiles.
And they assumed the missiles needed no extra intelligence or surveillance support.
Right, so the cards were stacked against the bomber from the start.
And yet, despite all that, the finding was stunning. The 30-year cost chart showed that if the nation needs to fight in these high-end conditions for just 20 days or more over the next 30 years,
The penetrating stealth bomber actually costs less.
it's cheaper than the missiles meant to do the same job.
That number, 20 days, is the economic tipping point. The sticker shock of a stealth bomber is massive up front, no doubt, but it's reusable.
Right.
If you fight for 20 days, you've fired 240 expensive single-use missiles that you have to completely replace. The bomber's cost gets amortized, while the missile costs just keep adding up.
That's the financial risk. But the strategic risks of relying only on expendables are maybe even bigger.
For sure. Stockpile risk is the first one. Let's say you can produce 100 of these complex JAS and MXR missiles a month, but a conflict forces you to fire 100 a day.
You run out of missiles very, very quickly.
Your strategic stockpile is gone. And once it's gone, your options are gone, no matter how many planes you have left.
And what about the second risk?
That's deterrence risk. Your adversaries have a pretty good idea of how many missiles you have. If they can calculate the limits of your high-end strike capability, it actually weakens your deterrent.
They might think they can just wait you out.
Exactly. They might be encouraged to just ride out your attacks, knowing that after a couple of weeks, you'll be out of the advanced munitions you need to keep fighting.
That really puts the high price of a stealth bomber into perspective. Okay, let's circle back to the technical challenge of speed. How do you detect a Mach 5 missile that's wrapping itself in a cloak of plasma?
This is where the science gets really interesting. The URSI study we looked at suggests that the very side effect of speed, that plasma footprint, is the thing you can exploit.
So its strength is also its weakness.
Potentially.
Yeah.
While the plasma sheath blocks RF signals, it's also constantly changing, and this is the key, it only lasts for a few milliseconds after the missile has passed. It leaves a trail.
So how do you propose catching this fading plasma ghost?
The researchers draw an analogy to something we detect all the time, meteor trails.
Huh.
Meteors hit the atmosphere at incredible speeds, up to 72 kilometers a second, that's Mach 12, and way, way up. And as they burn up, they leave these plasma trails that we could detect with high-frequency and very high-frequency radars.
And the physics is similar enough.
That's the argument. Hypersonic missiles are actually much slower, maybe Mach 5 to 20, and fly lower, between 30 and 90 kilometers. The point is, if we can scientifically track the plasma from meteors way up at 120 kilometers.
Then we should have the building blocks to detect the plasma from a slower, lower missile.
Precisely.
So what's the actual hardware you'd need? What's the technical solution for seeing this plasma?
The proposal is for a specific setup. A pulse Doppler radar, or PDR, with very high power and a high pulse repetition frequency. But the real trick isn't about power. It's about the physics of the plasma itself.
Something about a cutoff frequency.
Exactly. The plasma sheath acts like a selective filter. The frequency of your radar signal must be lower than the cutoff frequency of that plasma.
So the plasma is like a shield that just deflects high-frequency signals.
That's a great way to put it. The cutoff frequency is all about the electron density of the plasma. If your radar uses a frequency that's higher than what that density allows, the signal just fades out. It attenuates.
No echo comes back.
No echo. It's like trying to shout through a thick wall with a high-pitched voice. And this shows you the huge technical challenge for the defense.
Because that plasma density is always changing.
It's constantly changing with altitude, speed, atmospheric conditions. So you need a high-power radar that can, in real time, figure out that shifting cutoff frequency and tune itself to stay just below it. It's an incredibly difficult problem.
Fascinating. So speed creates its own signature, but actually exploiting it is a monumental hurdle. Okay, let's pull back and look at how all these pressures, technical, economic, are shaping the actual platforms of the future, aircraft.
Yeah, and you could trace this debate way back. Back in 2006, the National Research Council looked at this, and their conclusion then is still relevant today.
What'd they find?
They concluded that you could achieve survivability through multiple combinations of speed and stealth. It wasn't an either answer. You could be very stealthy and subsonic, or you could be moderately stealthy and near hypersonic and get the same result.
And yet, for a while there, the defense industry was pushing for an almost pure speed concept, the SR-72, the son of Blackbird.
Right, a Mach 6 ISR and strike aircraft, a successor to the legendary SR-71.
The propulsion alone on that was a massive challenge. It needed a new kind of engine, a turbine-based combined cycle or TBCC system.
Which is just an incredibly complicated engine. It has to act like a normal turbojet to take off, then a ramjet, and then ignite a scramjet to break Mach 4 and push to Mach 6.
A huge technological gap to bridge.
And a huge risk. And we saw a very clear choice made by the Air Force in late 2013. They declined to fund the SR-72.
And instead, they put their money into the RQ-180 stealth UAV.
That pivot says it all, doesn't it? The RQ-180 is a big, high-altitude, very stealthy drone for ISR in contested airspace. Choosing the quiet, persistent drone over the risky, high-speed SR-72 showed a clear strategic preference for low observability.
But that picture seems to be shifting again now with the Next Generation Air Dominance Program, NGAD. This feels like where they're finally trying to fuse both ideas.
NGAD is the synthesis, I think. It's not just one plane, it's a family of systems. At the center is a new crewed fighter, the Penetrating Counter-Air, or PCA, which we now know is designated the F-47.
And the main driver for its design is the Indo-Pacific.
The sheer scale of it, the distances involved mean you need an aircraft with extreme range and a huge payload.
So the F-47 requirements call for long-range, high-speed, and stealth. All three.
And it's expected to use those new next-generation adaptive propulsion engines, the NGAP program, which are designed for efficiency across all those different flight regimes.
So after all this debate, the final crewed platform is the ultimate blend. It reinforces that old NRC conclusion. Future survivability is built on a robust combination of speed, stealth, and range. You can't just pick one.
You really can't.
So what's the big takeaway here for you, the listener? We hear all this hyperbole, Sputnik moment whenever a new hypersonic missile is unveiled. But the reality, based on these sources, seems to be that hypersonics are less of a revolution.
And more of an incremental progress in things we already do, like precision strike and making deterrence more credible. Both stealth and speed are still necessary.
And now the U.S. is trying to blend them aggressively.
Right. So you now understand why both are necessary evils. Stealth is king when you have to be passive and unseen. But speed and maneuverability are essential when a fight is guaranteed to put the defender in that impossible time crunch.
And you also know that even speed leaves that scientific signature, the plasma footprint, that people are already trying to figure out how to track.
Yep.
But this brings me back to the RAND study, to the stockpile risk. The U.S. is developing these amazing things, the JASSM, XR, the F-47 NGAD, but a critical weakness noted across the board isn't technical, it's industrial. It's production.
The ability to build things at scale.
The U.S. defense industry struggles with it. These precision munitions, like JASSM or the new Tomahawks, can take up to 2 years to produce.
You're talking about huge bottlenecks, single-source suppliers, fragile supply chains.
So even if the F-47 is the perfect weapon, it still needs missiles to fire.
of course.
So if a platform's real survivability depends not just on its radar signature, its Mach number, but also on the ability to replenish its arsenal to avoid that strategic stockpile risk, then maybe the future vulnerability is less about the enemy's radar and more about the defender's own logistics and industrial base.
Huh. That's a heavy thought.
Something for you to mull over. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.